In 1968, Dad was killed on April 4th. This is the 50th year of his, the 50 years since he was assassinated. In June of that year, the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change was established. Now, to have my mom, in her mind and her team, probably had been planning for a long time, because it's very rare that you start an organization just a couple of months after your husband is killed. It usually takes a year to lay out your plan. And today we can do it a little faster because of technology, but it generally takes at least a year or so. So she already had these things in mind and established. We as a family have often, and most often, focused on the life and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., as opposed to his death. Death to some means the end, but it really was not the end. In a real sense, the tragic death propelled his message. Many do not know that in the latter years of the 60s, that Martin Luther King Jr. from 66 on to his death was hated by many for a couple of reasons. Or I say disliked, as opposed, hate is a strong word. So he was disliked. He was disliked because he began addressing global issues. One of the issues he addressed was the Vietnam War. That was in April 4th of 1967, 1 year before he was killed. But before that, he was addressing an issue that is related to all of us even this day, which is economic inequality. So he was talking about a living wage back in the 60s. And he went on to say, in the late 60s, he went on to say that America has got to have a radical redistribution of wealth and resources. That's what got him killed. Not because he was talking about folks riding on the front of buses, or because he was talking about folks being able to eat at lunch counters, or because he was talking about people being able to vote. It was because he was talking about the economic system of this nation. Now, when you talk about shaking up that institution, that radical distribution, Dad wasn't saying, well, that anyone who may be a millionaire, I'm going to take your money from you and give it to somebody else. What he was saying is how we spend the money is very critical. So $1 billion was a lot of money back then, and even it's still a lot. So if you take $1 billion and spend it on persons who work for transit, you may be able to create 100,000 jobs. If you take $1 billion and spend it on engineers, you may only be able to create 100,000 jobs. You may only be able to create 10,000 jobs. It just depends, because it's about the pay. So he was talking about redistributing wealth so that more people could make more. And he was talking about a living wage. Now here we are still debating about the minimum wage. We got to raise the minimum wage. We saw Walmart yesterday talked about raising the minimum for their employees going up to $11. And in some communities, maybe that's okay. But it's not every community is different. In New York City, you can't make it on $11. In Los Angeles, you can't make it. I don't know, maybe even in Dallas with all this glass that I see. I don't know. And when you have so much money coming in, see what people don't realize, yes, we have a phenomenal amount of debt, but we operate at a minimum of about, as a society, when we're talking about all businesses, we're talking about all government, we operate at about a $20 trillion economy. Now, I can't count the trillion. I don't even know what that means. But it's huge. Our federal government operating budget is about $3.6 trillion. So that's a huge aspect, but that's just the federal government. Corporate budgets and business budgets that make up the other, 18 billion or 17 billion that exists, 70 trillion, excuse me. That is so when you have a 18 to $20 trillion economy, how do you have the audacity to have poor people? There's something wrong with that. And the only reason it exists is because they're individuals who are exclusively concerned only about themselves and not concerned about how do we really make the nation better for all. I'm not saying that everybody will be a millionaire, and perhaps everybody, should not, but those who want to, who are entrepreneurial, who are business people. You should work as hard as you can to make as much money, and you should be able to make as much as you can. But everybody in the United States of America should have a decent home. Everyone should have the best education. There's no reason why our system of education is floundering as it is, and I should say public. Our private education and our colleges and universities are still some of the best on the planet. But everyone should have decent education. Everyone should have health care. Everyone in this country called the United States of America. Everyone should have a decent job, and everyone should be afforded justice. The criminal system, and I'm not going to call it a justice system because it is not just. It is unjust, particularly to communities of color and poor people. Communities of color and poor people. You go down to the courthouse looking for justice, the great late Richard Pryor used to say, and all you find is just us. Now, that's funny, but it's a sad commentary. Black people make up 13% of the population. But yet I bet you if you go down to Dallas, is it Dallas County? What's the county here? Dallas County. Dallas County, or wherever Fort Worth. Any of those counties, I guarantee you the number of blacks in the system is probably 60 and above. Now, something about that is not right. It's disproportionate. And our society assumes that black folk are committing all the crimes. Crime is being committed in every ethnic genre. And of course, the Latino and Hispanic population, as you know, disproportionately represented. That's not right. Now, the only way we change any of that is we get engaged in the political process. Every year we have elections. And I want to give this national statistic, and I don't know what the Texas statistics are. I do know that here in Texas, the governor and the legislature has been doing a lot of voter suppression and making it very difficult for people to vote because of gerrymandering. And that is unacceptable. That is not democracy. That is not the American way. And it has to be fought hard all the time. But participating in every election will make a difference. A difference at the federal level in Congress, a difference at the state level, and a difference at the city and local levels and town level. Participation. Now, in the United States of America, there are, I should say, in the world, there are about 170 democracies. Of those 170 democracies, the United States votes at 139. Think about that. We are supposed to be the greatest democracy on the planet. We voted 139. That means 137 countries around the world voted higher percentages than us. So until we realize and engage, then maybe, I don't like to say this, but maybe we get what we deserve. When you participate, when more people are participating in the process, I think we will have a different outcome. We will have different elected officials that we hold accountable. Our responsibility is to truly vote. Dad used to say a voteless people is a powerless people. And one of the most important steps we can take is that short step to the ballot box. And I've been saying that for years. Many of us just don't pay attention. I think now what this administration has done is caused us all to pay attention, because we're very concerned about ourselves, about our children, about generations yet unborn. That's who we as a nation, the United States of America, used to be. I think that's who the vast majority of Americans are, concerned about this generation and generations yet unborn. Whereas there are some who are in leadership who seem to only be concerned about who? Themselves. And that's it. That day has to be changed. And we begin that process with every election cycle. Let me finally encourage you with these closing words. As a child, I was taken often. I traveled with my mother. I traveled with my father. My mom took me to an undergraduate college, and the college was Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And on that college, there was a statue of the educator Horace Mann. And under that statue was an inscription that made an indelible impact on my life. Because what those words said under the inscription what the word said were, be ashamed to die until you've won a victory for humanity. Be ashamed to die until you've won a victory for humanity. You may say, oh my gosh, that's profound, that's grandiose. But you know, as I break it down, we can win victories in our neighborhoods. We can win victories in our schools. We can win victories in our places of worship. Some of us may win victories in our city. Some of us may win victories in our states. And some of us may win victories in our nation. And yet still some may even win victories in our world. All those words mean are, be ashamed to die until you've done a little something to make the world in which we all must live a little better, a little better than it was when you arrived. Thank you, and God bless you, and thank you for the opportunity, and may you continue to be successful.